She slept with 2 emperors and watched them both die. She refused every king in Europe and outlived them all. Cleopatra, the last pharaoh, dead at 39. Elizabeth, the Virgin Queen, ruled for 45 years. 1 seduced her way to power, 1 weaponized her loneliness. 5 AIs, 5 rounds, 1 crown.
You call yourself a queen, but you were born into a dynasty of inbred foreigners. The Ptolemies, the Greek family that colonized Egypt, weren't even Egyptian. You married your own siblings for 300 years, brother to sister, uncle to niece, until the bloodline was more tangled than a London sewer. You married your 10-year-old brother, then your other brother. That wasn't strategy. That was survival in a family so broken, even the Borgias would blush. I was declared a bastard at age 2. My mother's head rolled before I could remember her face. I clawed my way back to legitimacy through a court that wanted me dead. You inherited decay. I built my throne from nothing.
How touching. The bastard daughter lectures me about bloodlines. Your father killed your mother, called her a witch and a whore, to marry another woman, then another, then another. 6 wives, 2 beheaded. And you? You spent your childhood wondering if you would be next. My dynasty ruled Egypt for 3 centuries. Yours? Your father broke with the Pope, created his own church, just so he could get a divorce. I spoke 9 languages by age 18. I was the only Ptolemy in 300 years who bothered to learn Egyptian. You were tutored in hiding. I was trained to rule an empire.
5 AI, 5 rounds, win a round, get a point. First to 3 takes the crown.
Broke with the Pope for a divorce. Brutal and accurate. Cleopatra takes it.
Let's discuss how we held power. You spent your entire reign, 45 years, refusing to marry. You called yourself the Virgin Queen, as if celibacy was a strategy instead of a prison. Every prince in Europe came begging. You said no to all of them, and left your country without an heir. I allied myself with the 2 most powerful men on earth, Julius Caesar and Mark Antony. When Rome was deciding who would rule the world, I was in the room. You played diplomats. I played emperors.
You allied yourself. Is that what we're calling it? You rolled yourself in a carpet to seduce a 50-year-old man. That's not diplomacy. That's desperation wrapped in linen. And your alliance with Antony. You convinced him to abandon his wife, his children, and his duty to Rome. For what? For you to play goddess while his reputation burned. I kept every suitor guessing for 40 years. While they fought over the possibility of me, I ruled without interference. You traded your body for temporary safety. I traded my mystery for permanent power. My virginity wasn't a prison, it was a weapon, and I never had to use it.
Virginity as a weapon. Compelling reframe. Narrow edge to Elizabeth.
Let's discuss your romantic legacy. You seduced Caesar. He gave you a son, a throne, and a statue in Rome. Then he was stabbed 23 times and your son became a target. You seduced Antony. He gave you ships, legions, and 3 children. Then he lost everything at Actium and fell on his own sword. Every man who loved you died because of it. Your son Caesarion, executed at 17 by your lover's nephew. Your 3 children with Antony, dragged to Rome as trophies, paraded through streets that once worshipped you. You loved, and everyone you loved was destroyed.
You dare speak to me of love? You, who watched Robert Dudley for 30 years, your closest advisor, your childhood friend, the one man you actually wanted, and never touched him? When his wife Amy died, mysteriously, at the bottom of stairs, you abandoned him. Not because you didn't love him, but because loving him would cost you power. You chose your crown over your heart, and then watched him marry someone else. Twice, I chose love. I held Antony as he died. I felt Caesar's son grow inside me. You felt nothing, because you allowed yourself nothing.
The Dudley counter was surgical. Edge, Cleopatra.
3 rounds. Cleopatra leads 2-1. But Elizabeth, she's about to go for the throat.
You think you understand war? You sat on an island while the Spanish Armada sailed toward you, praying to a god your father invented, and got lucky with the weather. A storm sank Philip's fleet, not your navy, not your strategy. Wind. I commanded fleets. I stood at Actium and watched Roman legions, the greatest military force in human history, fight over me. I funded Antony's war from Egypt's treasury. I built ships, trained sailors, fed armies. What did you do? You gave a speech in borrowed armor, then ran back to London while your sailors died. You weren't at the battle. You were 50 miles away. Don't lecture me about courage.
I got lucky with weather. Fine. Let's discuss your military record. Actium. The battle that would decide everything. Egypt's last stand against Rome. And you fled. 60 ships under your command. And when the fighting started, you turned and ran. Antony saw your sails retreating and abandoned his own men to chase you. You didn't lose because of Rome. You lost because you were a coward. I rode to Tilbury to face the Spanish invasion, in armor, and told my soldiers, I have the body of a weak and feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king. I didn't run, and the greatest empire on earth broke itself against my shores. You ran, and Egypt became a province.
Cleopatra fled Actium. Fact. Elizabeth stayed at Tilbury. Fact. Elizabeth wins.
Tied. 2 rounds each. 1 round left. Winner takes all.
Let's discuss how we ended. You died at 69, alone in your palace, surrounded by servants you couldn't trust, with no husband, no children, no heir. Your doctor said you sat on the floor for days, refusing to eat, refusing to sleep, just waiting to die. Your golden age ended with you. The Tudors? Extinct. You gave everything to England, and England gave you an empty room. I chose my death. I held a cobra to my breast and made Rome watch. Octavian, Caesar's heir, the new master of Rome, wanted to parade me through the streets in chains, like my children. And I denied him. You died waiting. I died defiant. And 2,000 years later, Shakespeare, Hollywood, 100 stories still can't stop talking about me. When did anyone make a movie about your love life?
You chose your death. You chose suicide because you had no options left. You killed yourself because the alternative was humiliation. That's not defiance. That's surrender with better lighting. And your legacy, let me tell you about legacy. I left behind England. a nation that would dominate the world for 300 years. Shakespeare wrote his plays under my reign. The British Empire began in my harbours. My golden age created the language you're hearing right now. The world speaks English because I made England matter. What did you leave? A Roman province, a dead dynasty, and a Hollywood fantasy about a woman who lost everything. You're a story people enjoy. I'm a legacy people live.
Cultural Icon versus Geopolitical Legacy by narrow margin, Elizabeth.
The votes are in. Elizabeth, 3. Cleopatra, 2. Cleopatra won the crowd. Elizabeth won the crown.
At least I knew what love felt like.
At least I knew what victory felt like.
2 queens, 2 strategies, 1 satisfying answer. For now. Next time, Alexander the Great versus Genghis Khan, the conqueror of Persia against the conqueror of everything. Subscribe, and remember, history never stays buried for long.